This is the sound of all the things you want. And this is the sound of getting it super fast with GoPuff. Download now and order in seconds for delivery in minutes, all for a flat fee of $1.95.
Bacon Bash, take one.
Head to Red Robin for Bacon Bash. For bacon on burgers, bacon on all the things, like the savory sweet bacon jammin' burger. Bacon jam, seriously? Bacon jammin' wings with bacon crumbles. Wings too, is this right? And the caramel and cookie crumb shake with candied bacon. Bacon on a shake, what? Okay, I think we're done. If you need me, I'll be at Red Robin.
You forgot to say for a limited time.
Red Robin. Yum.
This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth, for competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty, for the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Things have heated up. It's almost like a volcano. Lava flowing from the mouths of the radical left and the left in general. Two events this day caught my attention. When I say this day, the last few days. One, a sentencing by Judge Royce C. Lamberth, once a good judge, once a courageous judge, someone who has caved in to the left, someone who has shown his stripes as part of the establishment. I saw it with Sheriff Joe Arpaio when we brought a lawsuit over defamation concerning Arpaio having been called a felon by CNN, Rolling Stone, and Huffington Post. Chris Cuomo was involved. He dismissed it really without any legal or factual reasoning. Perhaps he wanted to protect himself from the onslaught of the leftist media. Maybe he's had enough after all these years, but that's not a reason to throw my client under the bus. He could have set an example as to why these types of fake news and defamation have to be held to account. It was a perfect case. Another case where an individual had been called a felon when in fact he'd only committed a misdemeanor, as was the case with Sheriff Arpaio, and it was more like a traffic violation. He simply was accused of profiling at day worker sites to find illegal immigrants. Where else are you going to find them? This could have set a real example, and he bailed out. But just this week, he sentenced someone who was in the Capitol peacefully. And in doing so, even though he gave her probation, he went on a tirade, a jihad, against people who were there on January 6th, in effect calling them white domestic terrorists, just like our so-called President Biden called them, and others have called them as well. Of course, the FBI director, which is now, fomenting what is in effect a Gestapo dragnet against anybody that was in Washington, by and large, on January 6th. This is an example of why I wrote my book. It's why Jefferson prophesied that federal judges and Supreme Court justices, unelected, unaccountable to the people, will become despots and tyrants, causing us to shed the blood of patriots and tyrants again about every 20 years or so, adding, what's a few thousand dead to refresh the tree of liberty? Now, Jefferson didn't want to see anybody dead, neither do I. Everything we want to see happen will happen peacefully and legally. But he predicted the likelihood of this happening. So when you see someone like Judge Lamberth, who made all of those good rulings for me during the 1990s after I founded and ran Judicial Watch for 10 years, when you see him caving in effect going into a crouched position like every other politician and justice and judge in this nation on the federal level, then you know that the country is left defenseless. And of course, we're going to be talking about that during the show. This is why on July 5th and 6th in Philadelphia of this year, the 245th anniversary of our independence, we're going to have a group of distinguished delegates and speakers come forth to explain what's happened to them, the tyranny that they've experienced, and why we need to declare independence again, and why we need to shore up some loopholes in our Constitution, such as making sure that we can get judges who are pure, who are not put there by special interests, who become the yes men of those that got them their jobs. Because how do federal judges get on the bench? Through campaign contributions, otherwise known as bribes. Let's call it what it is. To make sure we have an independent Justice Department that isn't controlled by a deep state now controlled by the illegitimate President Biden and his illegitimate Vice President Harris, that are fanning out like the Gestapo, terrorizing people throughout the countryside. And I have clients in this regard who were there peacefully on January 6th, who are being subjected to these Gestapo tactics and violation of constitutional rights. I'm not going to name names because these cases are sensitive. But that's what we deal with today. And that's why we do need to think it through. Because as we said in the Declaration of Independence, when in the course of human events, the sovereign no longer represents the people. Under the laws of nature, nature's God, we have the right to alter or abolish that government and to form a new government by and for the people, with equal rights for everyone in pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. Now, let me give you another example of why the people of faith, conservatives, and others who believe in the vision of our founding fathers, as I just set forth in our Declaration of Independence, are being destroyed and removed. The left, who has total control of this country through these vile individuals that occupy the White House today and the vice presidential mansion, Biden and Harris, complete tools, stooges of the left, rubber stamps of radical groups that have taken over the country. They're trying to destroy conservative lawyers because they know that we'll rise up and challenge them. And just last Thursday, the law license of Rudy Giuliani, former mayor of New York, the president's lawyer in the election campaign contest and otherwise during the Mueller investigation, was temporarily suspended from the practice of law by the New York bar without a hearing. And what was the rationale? I'm going to read to you a portion of a report by CNN, the Communist News Network, but it's basically what happened. It's accurate, but you can see the slant. Let me read it to you. Rudy Giuliani, the former personal lawyer for former President Donald Trump, who once held one of the legal profession's most prestigious jobs, was suspended Thursday from practicing law in New York State by an appellate court that found he made demonstrably false and misleading statements about the 2020 election. In a ruling released following disciplinary proceedings, there were no disciplinary proceedings, the court concluded, quote, "There's uncontroverted evidence that Giuliani communicated demonstrably false and misleading statements to courts, lawmakers, and the public at large in his capacity as lawyer for former President Donald J. Trump and the Trump campaign in connection with Trump's failed effort at re-election in 2020. Giuliani's conduct immediately threatens the public interest and warrants interim suspension from the practice of law." What they're saying is that Giuliani did not have a right, and in fact, it's in the opinion, to say that the election was procured, was tainted with fraud and election irregularities. They are saying that they want to remove him in the practice of law because he supported Donald Trump. And that's the effort. They want to destroy everybody who supported Trump because they know those people are conservatives. They know they're people of faith. They know that we will rise up again and we'll reclaim this country with the divine providence of God, as we're going to deliberate on at the Third Continental Congress in Philadelphia on July 5th and 6th. And I hope you'll be there. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and sign up to be there. If you're a student and you're a veteran, you get in free. If not, we ask for a contribution because that helps us pay for it and to do our work. But what's going on with Giuliani is occurring not just with the New York bar, but with the District of Columbia bar. I have been fighting them for years. They would like to remove me from the practice of law. They're not going to succeed. They even had a communist, an individual by the name of Michael Tiger, who was fired as a Supreme Court clerk because of his ties to communist Castro and Cuba. These are the people that are trying to remove conservative lawyers. And not just me. Kellyanne Conway, who was even inactive, gets a bar complaint signed by 16 leftist law professors, including Tiger, who obviously was trying to adjudge me, and to remove her from the practice of law. Attorney General Bill Barr, I don't know why they're upset with him, because he didn't do anything when he was Trump's attorney general against the left. But they want to remove him for withdrawing the indictment of Michael Flynn and statements he made on Fox News. They want to remove Senator Ted Cruz because he supported the president during the last election. They want to remove Senator Josh Hawley for the same reason. All 5 bar presidents of the D.C. bar, I think it's 4 actually, all 4 of them, signed the complaint to disbar the former Attorney General, Bill Barr, plus a senior counsel, Michael Frisch, who is now retired and working at the leftist Georgetown Law School. On the same token, a complaint that was filed by Ty Clevenger, an activist, a friend of mine, who the D.C. bar forced to resign or they would have bankrupted him, still a lawyer in other states, had filed a complaint against David Kendall for admittedly helping Hillary Clinton destroy 33,000 emails. That's obstruction of justice. His complaint gets thrown in the trash. So this is what the left is doing to the right. Use big tech, use social media, use major corporations like Coca-Cola and Delta, use sports leagues, use universities, academia, use labor unions, use every aspect of society, and of course use the Justice Department as a Gestapo to lock up anyone who was there on January 6th and simply walked into the Capitol. And for that matter, anybody that was in Washington just in support of President Trump, they're being run down. You know, friends are being asked to turn in other friends, or they'll wind up getting indicted or whatever the case may be. This country has turned into the Fourth Reich. It's what we saw in Nazi Germany. It's what we saw in the Soviet Union. This is the seriousness of it. Now, later on in the show, I'm going to have Donato Dalrymple on because you might remember him. He was the fisherman who saved Elian Gonzalez and trying to keep Elian in this country under the Clinton rule, their reign of terror, which was was not even as bad as it is today, but it was bad. A gun was shoved in his face and little Elian, and Elian was taken back to Cuba to be brainwashed and to be used as a tool for communist propaganda. I'll be right back with the second segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. We're going to talk about the Third Continental Congress, and then we're going to have Donato on to show how this government tyranny has been going on for a long time and has only reached a fever pitch right now. Be right back.
Dangerous.
You don't hear, use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Let's talk about the Third Continental Congress, what it is we hope to accomplish, who's going to be there. We're going to have delegates like Sheriff Joe Arpaio, America's toughest sheriff. Of course, you have yours truly, America's toughest lawyer. You have Alan Keyes. You'll have Judy Mikovits and Ken Heckenlively, who alerted us to the dangers of the COVID-19 vaccines and also the fact that Cal Fauci gave the seeds of COVID-19 with money that was appropriated by Biden, yes, Biden and Harris, to the Wuhan lab, which then resulted in a bioweapon that destroyed most of the world, still continuing to do it. We're going to have individuals like Charles Woods, whose son Ty Woods died at Benghazi. No explanation. No accountability by Hillary Clinton or anyone, even though we brought a lawsuit. Amy Berman Jackson, the leftist judge in D.C., dismissed that case on the eve of Memorial Day, if you can believe that, sticking it to a grieving Gold Star family. We're going to have families of those who died at Extortion 17, another tragedy in the Afghan war. We're going to have people from Hollywood, tentatively Morgan Brittany, who played in Dallas, who is my very good friend, who can talk about, what's going on there and elsewhere in terms of the degradation of our society. We're going to have others. Armstrong Williams, a courageous Black conservative. We're going to have people that were wronged by corporate arbitrations, not just the courts, but corporate arbitrations, which are stacked against the little guy, stacked for the establishment that harm people. We're going to have victims of the current Gestapo tactics of the FBI with regard to January 6th and trying to quell any opposition and dissent to the total leftist takeover of this country. Anyway, I can go on and on and on, but these people are going to give their testimony. They're going to explain to you why we are at a crossroads, why the United States must now renew itself, why we need to declare independence for a second time. And it's not just educational, but we have the right to do that. And I would like, of course, it's going to be a vote. It's a democracy. This isn't Larry Klayman's show. Freedom Watch is sponsoring it. You can go to freedomwatchusa.org and see what's going on. But we need to hear from people like Ryan and Ammon Bundy, who experienced government terror and tyranny, just like Donato Dalrymple did. We need to hear from radio talk show hosts around the country that can attest to what's going on because they stay attuned to it every single day. Conservative radio talk show hosts like Andrea Kaye and others out there in San Diego. People who understand because they follow the pulse of America. In fact, the only place that you can talk freely anymore is on the radio. Everything else is censored. Even some conservative websites censor other conservatives for fear of retaliation. That is how bad it is. And I can tell you, enlisting support for our Third Continental Congress, not everybody wants to come because they're afraid, because they think that somehow they're going to be locked up, that the FBI will visit them. And we need brave patriots. Our founding fathers pledged their fortunes and risked their lives and dedicated their sacred honor to form a new nation. Jefferson and Washington, as I've said many times, were so rich that they would be millionaires, even with inflation factored in today's world. They didn't have to stick their neck out. But they understood that King George III, with all of his edicts, ramming it down the throats of the colonies, overtaxing it because the colonies were extremely rich. They didn't have to leave the British Empire, but they understood that ultimately it would result in a dictatorship. And when the colonialists balked with the Boston Tea Party and other events, then the king cracked down with his corrupt judges in London sanctioning it, trying to seize our weapons, our means of self-defense, taking away our legal system back to the Court of St. James in London. This is what the king did. But you know what? Look at today. Biden and Harris and the left, which is putting them up to do these evil deeds, wants to do much more than that. They want to socialize the country, turn it into a socialist, communist, atheist gulag dictatorship. Radical Muslims, radicals of the Marxian Jewish left, radical gays, lesbians, transgenders, radical blacks, radical atheists, radical feminists. And most of these people in these groups are decent people, but the radicals have taken control. Listen to what Donato Dalrymple has to say, because it didn't start just today. It started yesterday, but it's become, as he says, 1,000 times worse. And now we must rise up and we must renew this country. So I hope you'll go to freedomwatchusa.org and sign up for our Third Continental Congress on July 5th and 6th at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I want to reintroduce somebody, a very brave person, an articulate person, someone who made a lot of history, with not just with regard to the Cuban community in Miami and Fidel Castro's Cuba, but with the nation as a whole. He experienced the tyranny of the Clinton administration in the whole saga that involved Elian Gonzalez. His name is Donato Dalrymple, and I bring him on because he can be extremely convincing on getting people to understand, to educate them, the power of how the misuse of power, federal power, against American citizens and people who are trying to live faithfully under our Constitution. Donato, tell us the story of your involvement with Elian Gonzalez and, how it turned out and what you experienced.
November of 1999 is when me and my cousin went out fishing and found Elian Gonzalez, and it was short after that, to squeeze the story in, that it became a political football. And I went down there to Miami because every day there was crowds that were growing and growing and wondering what was going to happen to this little boy that was rescued 3 miles off the coast of Fort Lauderdale and survived, his mother and 17 others that passed away there on the ocean. And I just want to bring you to the night of the raid. I went down there and they were negotiating, and they had a right. This is what I want to emphasize. They had a right in the 11th Circuit Appeals Court that the boy could be in that home. It wasn't like they were breaking the law. They were able to have it. But then Janet Reno and Bill Clinton, they overrode the rule of law and said, no, the boy has to go. Because obviously they were in bed with Fidel Castro. I don't know to what extent or what point, but I was laying down there on the sofa, and about 5 o'clock in the morning, unbeknownst to me, I actually went to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning while they were negotiating in the back of the house. The attorneys on the phone with Janet Reno, Eric Holder, and the Miami attorneys for the family. And I woke up to hear, get down or we'll shoot, get down or we'll shoot. And I couldn't believe it. I thought I was dreaming. And the next thing you know is I heard Elian screaming. And it was just like it was yesterday. And I grabbed him into my arms, and I just ran for shelter because I couldn't imagine. And before you know it, I ran into a room, and it wasn't even maybe a minute, no more than a minute, broke down the door, and there were federal armed agents with these German assault weapons pointing right at our faces and asking to give over the boy.
So that's the famous photograph of you holding Elian in a closet with an automatic weapon shoved into both of your faces, a very young boy. How old was Elian at the time?
6 years old. He just had his 6th birthday.
So you talk about gun violence and everything else the left likes to talk about. Of course, they're very happy to use it against people that simply want to live a free life in this country and shove a automatic weapon, a machine gun, in the face of a 6-year-old kid. This was the Clinton administration. Let's back up a little bit. How did you capture, or rather, how did you save Elian Gonzalez? What was the story about that? They used to call you the fisherman. And, it's a beautiful story as to what happened.
Yeah, that fateful day, Larry. My cousin, Sam Ciancio, which has kind of like stayed away from the media somewhat, mine was a missionary journey. So that day, we were not supposed to go out fishing. There was 8 to 12-foot swells out there, and I talked my cousin at 5 o'clock in the morning. I said, look, I just woke up. We got to go out on the ocean. So we went out there. There was absolutely zero population out on that ocean that morning, and there was a dark black sky with to the south and to the north. The sun was rising, and it was murky waters. My cousin was saying, look for seaweed and debris, anything floating on the ocean. And I'm driving at the front of the boat, and he's baiting the poles in the back. And there I run about 3 miles off the coast of Fort Lauderdale. I run right into an inner tube. And I said to my cousin, like that inner tube over there, now, I don't think I can paint the picture that great myself, but we were just anybody that's been out on boating, 8 to 12-foot swells, that means your boat is rocking. We were in a 25-foot fishing vessel, which is not that small but not that big. But with those waves, we were crashing up and down. So we never got that close to that inner tube, but I did see a hand that was hanging on and a head that was, it was just dangling inside that inner tube. And my cousin thought it was a sick joke and said, let's get out of here. And I kept looking and looking. I said, no, that's a person. I said, we got to call for help because this person's dead. The body's going to decay in the water. So I thought that was inhumane. But I couldn't get it out of my mind. And my cousin said, no, it's just a sick joke. Let's go. Somebody tied a doll to this inner tube. And so we left. And if anybody knows, this isn't like you're on a boulevard. You can come back to the same spot. But I believe it was the Almighty that brought me back to that same place about 10 or 15 minutes out fishing without finding fish. We went back in before going back into the inlet to go back to shore. And we went right into that same inner tube again. And that's when I seen the hand move on that inner tube. And that's when we moved in to rescue what we now know as Elian Gonzalez.
He was 6 years old. His mother had fled Cuba, as many Cubans had, in rafts. She died. I guess she left with other people as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a long time. I wound up representing.
Yeah, there was 17 in total.
Yeah, 17. They all died except Elian. They were eaten by sharks. And, I wound up representing the Gonzalez family. I wound up representing you, as well, with regard to the Gestapo tactics that were used on you at the time. And, I remember visiting the home of Elian's uncle where he was staying, and they had a picture up there, and you could see a vision of Mary in it. It was a miracle. They were Catholic. And did you see that, Donata? Did they show you that?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes, they're Catholic people, and there was some type of a painting of some sorts, or I remember seeing it.
It's an unfortunate experience in that, the Cuban community rose up, and they challenged Bill Clinton, and they challenged his henchmen, people like Gregory Craig, his lawyer. That helped them in the impeachment and was representing the National Council of Churches, which is communist. And of course, there's some symmetry here today as well, because this country is turning socialist and communist as we speak. And yet Clinton, back in those years, bent over backwards for Castro. You have to wonder what he got. But one of the reasons why you're going to be a featured speaker at our Third Continental Congress, other than the fact that we're friends and other than the fact that you're articulate and communicate your thoughts extremely well, is that people need to understand that this tyranny, this government tyranny, has been going on against the American people for many, many years. And in my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, and in fact, it's out there now, but I'm going to actually update it this fall as well. But get this copy. You can get it at freedomwatchusa.org, at all major booksellers, and we'll also give it to you for free if you buy a ticket to come into the Third Continental Congress on July 5th and 6th. But the government has been doing this kind of stuff for decades, Democrat and Republican administrations. Most people think that the CIA even killed Kennedy because they thought he was too weak with regard to communism, or maybe the mafia had a role to play in it. The government has lied to the American people over and over again. They lied with regard to Elian Gonzalez in terms of, the fact, that obviously he wanted to stay here in this country with his uncle and his family. They took him away against their will. And if he was taken back to Cuba, brainwashed and used as a tool, propaganda tool, basically, his mind is gone at this point.
Larry, no good deed goes unpunished. I became like a hero overnight. Not that I was expecting that. I have a missionary heart, and that's what I was doing. But I became a villain right overnight, and I became a very despised person within the media. So, today we're living here 21 years later from the time of Elian Gonzalez, and I was a product of the way the media was treating people back then, and it's only gotten 100% worse to where it's so biased. And I was just a regular, everyday American citizen that did a mitzvah, which is a good deed, and ended up, being mentally punished by the media and by even by Washington. I mean, it was horrible. And everything that was back then, those days, everything that was wrong is right, everything that's right is wrong, and now multiply it by 100 times, or maybe 1,000. That's what we're seeing today in our society.
But very well put, Donato. And in fact, we were just talking about, bar associations in the District of Columbia and New York that are trying to eliminate conservative lawyers that will challenge them, like Rudy Giuliani yesterday for simply defending the president with regard to what everybody knows was a fraudulent election. I mean, how else could you have somebody that's brain dead like Joe Biden and someone just as vile and evil as Kamala Harris be elected without fraud? I mean, you don't even need any facts, basically. I mean, these people are destroying this country, and they're the shills of the radical left and the left in general. But so what are you doing today? Tell people, bring us up to date. And because you are a hero, I mean, you stood out, you stuck your neck out, not just for Elian, but for the American people and for our Constitution.
Well, you know, a lot of people never understood the man that was behind Elian Gonzalez. They see me on television. Like I said, I was a missionary back in those days, and that's what my mission was. Now, I wasn't trying to, grab my Bible and beat people over the head, but I'm behind the scenes besides the, fighting for him to be able to have at least a free trial here in this country, which he didn't get. Neither did his Miami family, or neither did his father get it by that stretch, But so these days, I'm actually blowing a shofar, which is very interesting, and I believe it's prophetic towards the nations to wake us up, even to join forces with you again, Larry. For freedom. You know what I mean? So this is what I'm doing today, and I'm trying to awaken people to all that we have at stake and all that we can lose. It's spiritual and political, so that's about what I'm doing today.
Well, that's very important because, as you know, and, I'm making reference to this, the Declaration of Independence is that against all odds, the founding fathers in the colonies created a new nation. And to do that, and you read the Declaration of Independence, they invoke the divine providence of the Father and the Son. Yes. And without that, they had no hope. Now, the American people today who are turning increasingly atheist, and of course that's what the left wants us to do, they want us to worship the altar of government, not the altar of God, is that without God's guidance and divine providence, we're not going to exist as a nation. And we see that every single day with what's going on and how our ethics and morality is being degraded, how we kill unborn babies, millions and millions of them. Just last week, the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals overturned a law in Missouri that said that you could not have an abortion after 8 weeks. We know that the heart starts beating in a child at 7 weeks. That's murder. I mean, these judges basically just sanction murder. And God has destroyed many civilizations in the past when they don't adhere to his teachings and his rule. I think that may be what's happening right now, unless we reverse course. Your thoughts?
Well, we're in a lawless society today. I'm a Torah observant Messianic Jew. I'm not trying to preach to anybody that's out there right now, but that's where I am, trying to follow the laws of God. And the laws of God are not grievous. They're not heavy and burdensome. And what's happening here in this country is I see that as ancient Israel walked away from the law, they suffered underneath the idea that what it would be like to be out from under the umbrella of the Almighty. And I think that's what's happening. I know what's happening in this country. We have walked away from even the laws of God, number one, but even now under the laws of this great nation, that what's made this nation so great. You know what I mean? We just walked away from them, and we're amending this and we're amending that, and we're changing everything to fit ourselves. I mean, like all these movements that they just basically, they went around and they ravaged the country, but it's all...
You're absolutely right, Donato. Yeah, we're out of time here, but what you said is very powerful. We're going to bring you back. I look forward to seeing you in Philadelphia. You'll be a great inspiration to the American people to tell your story and to talk about your faith. God bless you, Donato. Thank you.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now the verdict, fellow patriots, people who are not sunshine soul soldiers and some are soldiers and some are patriots. I'm twisting the words of Thomas Paine, but you know what he meant. He meant get up off the couch, turn off Hannity, and get to work. That's what we have to do. Because if we sit around and do nothing, the country will be forever lost. When you see once good judges like Royce Lamberth throwing in the towel, going with the flow, because he's afraid that somehow he'll be held accountable by the masses as part of the corrupt federal judiciary. When you see bar disciplinary councils trying to eliminate any means to address in court through legal proceedings the unconstitutional actions of the Justice Department, of its FBI, of the left in general, which has seized total control over this country. They want to eliminate not just yours truly, they want to eliminate Giuliani, they want to eliminate Kellyanne Conway, they want to eliminate former Attorney General Bill Barr, they want to eliminate Senator Cruz, Senator Hawley, and yes, Giuliani in both bars, both the New York bar and the DC bar. These are highly leftist organizations. Their officials give heavily to prominent Democrats like Obama and Clinton. I can't think of one that gives to a Republican, not that it matters because I wouldn't give them money either to the Republicans. It's a worthless and dead party. But you see who they are. They're rabid leftists. And they want to destroy any means for us to legally try to change this country. So consequently, we need to work outside of the established legal system. That's exactly what our founding fathers did. Note that in the Declaration of Independence, and I urge you to read it before you even read my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, which you get a free copy of at the Third Continental Congress in Philadelphia on July 5th and 6th, is that they talk about the law of nature and nature's God. They're not talking about established law of Great Britain and of the king. And that's for a reason, because these laws, many of them, were contrary to the laws of God. They were there to serve the purposes of the king, just like the actions that are going on right now in the federal judiciary and state courts, all around the country with governments, legislatures, etc., are primarily to serve the interests of those people who are in power. They have broken away from we the people. They stuff money into their pockets from lobbyists. In fact, that's how you get to be a federal judge. Campaign contributions, they get it from special interests. They ante up the money, and then they have their people on the bench which do their bidding, both political parties. So it's time for the American people to rise up. And that's why this Third Continental Congress is so important. I urge you to contribute to Freedom Watch. It's very expensive, and our citizens' grand juries to ourselves enforce the rule of law, to do it fairly and equally. Justice Scalia said the grand jury belongs to the American people, so we're using it. We've indicted Robert Mueller. We've indicted Joe Biden. We've indicted Hunter Biden. We've indicted James Biden for massive bribery from China, Ukraine, and Russia. We have indicted Fauci. We're in the process of upping that ante with the indictment. We're about to indict Ilhan Omar for her actions. And we're going to go on and on and on until we bring about justice. Then these people will be tried. When we get convictions, they'll be sentenced. And the sentences will be meted out peacefully and legally. But we, the American people, must rise up. We're not going to be violent, but we'll need to defend ourselves. And I believe the military will protect us, and I believe the police will. You know, it was the police that let people into the Capitol on January 6th. They've had it. They've been much abused, assaulted, maimed, and killed. And it's time for we, the American people, to risk all, because if you do not only will we not have a country, but your kids and grandkids will be living under the hammer and sickle of leftist enslavement. So take it to heart. Get up off the couch. If you're in retirement, do something, because if you care about your kids and grandkids, it's all going to be lost. If you don't do anything, if you don't invoke the divine providence, God will not help us. But he will help us if we help ourselves. Thank you for listening to us. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, go to freedomwatchusa.org and sign up for our Third Continental Congress before all is lost. Thank you for listening to me.
When you want something now, later won't cut it. Download GoPuff now and order in seconds for delivery in minutes, all for a flat fee of $1.95. GoPuff, make now good. When you want something now, later won't cut it. Download GoPuff now and order in seconds for delivery in minutes, all for a flat fee of $1.95. GoPuff, make now good.
It makes a difference when a community gets thousands of new jobs. It makes a bigger difference when all of those jobs pay more than double the federal minimum wage. All Amazon employees make at least $15 an hour. Employees aren't the only ones who experience the impact of our starting wage. Neighbors like Sylvia and Francois of Sylvia's Cafe in Opelika, Florida, feel the impact of that extra spending money. See their story at aboutamazon.com/15/15/15/15/15/15/15.